Slavery is back.
Welcome to a place where private business profit from a captive labour force, yet pennies are spent on medical services to a population in which the Indigenous, the poor and the mentally ill are overrepresented. Where isolation, humiliation and degradation are facts of life. Welcome to prison.
It depends who's telling the story, I suppose. The prisoners would have one view, the people who work in the prison system would have another, and I think it's up to people to decide where the truth is.
Give government propaganda and the media spin doctors the flick. And check out Doin Time for news, views and tunes on prison issues from Guantanamo Bay to Christmas Island to prisons and detention centres everywhere. Every Monday at 4 p.m. on your community radio 3CR.
We are still fired up and we're still talking about revolution.
Hello and welcome to the Doin Time show. This is 3CR Community Radio, 855 AM on the dial, streaming live on www.3cr.org.au. And a warning that this episode of Doin Time may contain audio images of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who have died and discussion of deaths in custody. The 15th of April also marks the 23rd anniversary of the tabling of the findings in Parliament of the Royal Commission into Aboriginal Deaths in Custody. The final report, signed on the 15th of April 1991, made 339 recommendations, but has anything really changed? I'm Marisa and the Doin Time show will run from 4 till 5. We will start off the show with an interview featuring Negar Panahi, who is the principal managing lawyer of the Bilit Nugalu Youth Specialist Team at Victorian Aboriginal Legal Service. And all mistakes of pronunciation are mine, and Negar will introduce herself formally when I welcome her onto the show. Negar started as a volunteer in the criminal law practice and has worked in various roles at VELS. Negar joined Bilit Nugalu as senior lawyer in 2021 and has been involved in significant advocacy around reducing the criminalisation of children and advocating for more diversion opportunities for all young people. We will discuss this very important program and Negar will give a report back on a recent webinar organised by VELS. Funding is running out in June and it's really important that we look at this. Next we will hear from Meena Singh, Commissioner for Aboriginal Children and Young People, about Aboriginal youth, and we will speak about child protection system and inquiries regarding Aboriginal youth, all in the context of colonisation and genocide. Now I would like to welcome Negar onto the show. Hello.
Good afternoon, Marisa.
Good afternoon. I had to fly through that introduction, but lovely to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Now, can you start off just by formally introducing yourself?
So, my name is Negar Panahi. I'm the Principal Managing Lawyer of Bilit Nugalu. And as you mentioned before, Bilit Nugalu is the specialised youth team at the Victorian Aboriginal Legal Service.
Thank you so much. Now, can you just explain to listeners about this program and also, it is a big problem about the funding running out and just in the context of, youth being overrepresented in prisons and how we can actually do some holistic work to address that?
Yeah, absolutely. So Bilit Nugalu was relaunched in September 2021 and the intention behind the program is that we have legal representation, legal services, and that our program works as a I guess, how do I put it? So our program is one that we have community workers, so we have community engagement workers, and they work alongside our lawyers to be able to deliver a holistic service. So usually in most legal centres, community legal organisations or legal aid or private practitioners, the young person is allocated a lawyer, and that is their contact point between them and the the criminal legal system.
Sure.
In our program, it's a bit different in that once they come through at intake, they're allocated an ACE worker, so that's short for the Aboriginal Community Engagement Worker, and they're allocated a lawyer that works with them consistently throughout their matter. And we develop a plan together. So it's not just legal. So we develop a plan that takes into account the young person's non-legal needs. So that's so much more than what is at court, what's listed in that police brief. And it really takes into account why is it that this young person has come into contact with the criminal legal system. And we try to address those issues. And that is, like I said, we work together. The ACE worker will do some planning. They'll build rapport with the young person as well, and often their families too. And if the young person wants, they'll help them out with getting a job or getting them back into school or linking them in with other Aboriginal controlled community organisations if they want to get involved in more pro-social activities. So we look at the young person more than just what is listed at court, essentially. And that's our approach from the outset.
Fantastic. So it sounds a lot more holistic and culturally safe.
Absolutely. So our Aboriginal community engagement workers, they are community members, so that those roles are identified roles. And that in itself is something that we prioritise, and that those roles are never a role that is filled with a non-Aboriginal person.
Of particular concern are the bail laws and how this negatively impacts on First Nations youth. What can this program do to do some diversionary work to do that, to stop, people from going into prison in the first place?
So we work, our ACE workers essentially case manage the young people. And from the outset, so before the young person is sentenced or placed on diversion, we're working towards diversion from that very first phone call. What can we put in place? What supports can be put in place? So that we can prioritise that as a number one need for that young person. And so that's one of the things that we do that helps, I guess, the young person navigate their way out of the criminal justice system. And often it might be something as simple as, that young person has fallen out of school and they've got a lot of idle time. And that it means that they're mixing with some peers that are perhaps can be some negative influences, often older peers. And that in itself is, if we can fill the young person's day with other activities, it might not necessarily be getting back into school. We try to figure out what their interests are, what their hobbies are, and really pay attention to that individual young person so that they are, that we can create something that suits them, and that means that they're not, spending their time hanging out with older peers, getting up to some mischief.
Yeah, it's really difficult, isn't it? Although one of the long-standing things that the Doin Time show has done is really look at police and the long-standing, really dreadful relationship that has been had with young people, in that police have become quite punitive, and not just police but the criminal justice system. So we need communities, not prisons. How can the program educate police or try to shift some of that unconscious bias?
I think that is a responsibility that needs to be held by Victoria Police. It's not something that we can change.
Sure.
This culture of racism, this culture of, like you said, the punitive view that they take on crime, that culture needs to be shifted internally. And, URUK has made some recommendations about how they can shift, I guess, that mindset, that very old school mindset about how, this tough on crime mentality, and how we can protect the community, but also make sure that we're trying to help young people from those very early contacts with the system, how we're helping these young people be diverted away from the justice system or the criminal legal system. It's not really accurate to call it the justice system. It is something that needs to be prioritised, and this mentality that young people get one or two chances and then we throw the book at them or really come down on them hard, it's just not going to pay off. I think what people forget, and perhaps Victoria Police as well, is that these young people who are 13 and 14 today will eventually be 20 and 21 and 40 years old. And if you don't put in the supports across the board, we're talking about supports in education, as supports in mental health, supports with getting any sort of relevant testing done, whether it be a diagnosis, whether it be NDIS. If you don't do these things from these early stages and these early ages, you can't expect that things are going to be different once these young people are adults.
That is very true. And in fact, I attended the recent webinar that Victorian Aboriginal Legal Service organised. Were you not a speaker? I believe you were a speaker there on the panel.
I was the moderator.
You were the moderator. That's right. I
Yes.
thought I recognised your voice. So that was pretty amazing, wasn't it? We had Meena Singh, who is the Commissioner for Aboriginal youth, isn't it, or children, I should say, or both.
That's right. So Meena Singh is the Commissioner for Aboriginal children and young people. She's absolutely amazing. The work that she does is truly phenomenal.
Indeed, and she'll be up next on our show. And also I've interviewed Narita Waite, who's the CEO, isn't she, of
That's correct.
Of Victorian Aboriginal Legal Service. And she has come on quite a few times onto our show. So, look, this is fantastic that you've been able to give an overview. Can we just briefly talk about the fact that funding is running out in June? And I know that historically, Aboriginal people have been excluded quite a lot from policy making. And, could you just talk about the fact that the funding is running out and how people can donate?
So that's correct. Our funding does run out June 30 this year. We have put in a bid, obviously, for further funding, given the success that Bulitnaloo has had, and that we have countless case studies of young people who have come into contact with our program and come into contact with the criminal legal system, and how they have been diverted away because of the supports that have been put in place by Bulit, by our ACE workers and by our lawyers. It is something that needs to be addressed quite urgently by the department and by the government, that we urgently do need further funding to be able to continue and expand. I think it's really important to recognise that although Bulit has been operating quite successfully now for 3 years, because of the limitations that we've had in funding, we haven't been able to expand across Victoria, and we haven't been able to expand into the family division of the Children's Court. So that is significant, and I would urge people to email your local MP, and if you would wish to donate, you're welcome to donate as well. On the VAL's website there is a link to donate, but perhaps more significantly, raise your concerns with your local MP and let them know that you want to see Bulitnaloo refunded. It's money that is really being put to excellent use. We don't want to see young people our youth detentions for prolonged periods. We don't want to see young people spending years of their lives in the system. We want to invest in community supports. We want to invest in programs that we know work. And so I would encourage everyone to get on board, follow us on social media. We're also, we're on Twitter, we're even on TikTok, on Facebook and LinkedIn. Please follow us and follow along, and we always share the links on how you can support us as well.
Negar, thank you so much for coming onto the program. I mean, I think a comment that I'd like to make to add to that before we finish is that it's so important for our First Nations youth to be on country when they're healing. And that doesn't happen because it's such a punitive system.
Absolutely. And it's so important for our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander youth to have that self-determination as well. I think the system doesn't really allow scope for that, other than Koori Court, but we make sure, and it should be a real priority for everyone, that young people who are having contact with any services are in a position to make choices and be able to decide as to how their future progresses.
Yeah, I mean, as you probably heard in the introduction, and I know that this program doesn't necessarily look at Aboriginal deaths in custody, but in some ways, this anniversary of the Royal Commission, I mean, look at what happened with John Pat. He was really young, wasn't he?
Mm.
And he died. I suppose what I'm trying to say is that everything's interconnected, isn't it? Child protection, this program, the fact that, First Nations people are dying in custody. We all need to do preventative work, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think it would be naive of people to think that the criminal legal system is one that operates independently, in that, the young people are coming into contact with the criminal legal system without having any background in, say, child protection. There is a huge portion. The last data we had was over 40% of young people who have had some contact with the criminal legal system had come to the attention of child protection. And so that link, that crossover is something that we need to recognise and do better. I think the reality is, and I say this all the time, is that we're the adults in the situation. It's our responsibility. We can't expect 13 and 14-year-olds to do this on their own. And so it is our duty to walk alongside with them, not in front of them, but to walk alongside with them and help them navigate through this system.
Indeed. I mean, I recently interviewed Auntie Vicky Roach some years ago now. You would have heard of her, that she exited prison and she had a criminal record at 3 years old because she was taken away from her mother as a stolen generation survivor. It's all connected. Any final comments you wanted to make before we finish?
The only final comment I would make is for people to have an open mind and an open heart when you're having discussions about children, in children that are coming into contact with the criminal legal system. That's, I guess, my parting words for people is it's very easy to judge, but it is much harder to learn and to find out what you can do to make a change. And that all comes with having an open mind and an open heart and knowing that no one comes into the criminal justice system or criminal legal system by everything lining up perfectly for them.
Exactly, and we also need the media as well to stop scaring the public and start to look at some of the real issues that young people face.
Definitely. I couldn't agree more.
Thanks so much for your time, Negar, and I'm sure we'll speak again.
Thank you so much, Marisa. Thanks for having me.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. And that was Negar, who is the Principal Managing Lawyer of the Balit Nglu Youth Specialist Team at Victorian Aboriginal Legal Service. And we're going to be taking a little bit of a musical break and doing a few announcements, and then we'll speak with Meena Singh, Commissioner for Aboriginal Children and Youth.
Mayday all night.
Are you a night owl?
I'm not.
Burning the midnight oil?
Working the night shift?
Or just an insomniac?
For one night only. Talkback with Attitude is taking your calls.
You've got to be kidding.
From 12:30 till 5 a.m. God. 7 a.m. I've just been corrected. That's, of course, if we survive.
From 12:30 a.m. to 7 a.m. Till we get tired.
May Day, Wednesday, the 1st of May.
Grandfather walked this land in chains, a land he called his own. He was given another name and taken into town. But he got special treatment, very special treatment. My father worked a 12-hour day as a stockman on the station. The very same work, but not the same pay as his white companions. He got special treatment, very special treatment. Mother and father loved each other well, but together they could not stay. They were split up against their will until their dying day. They got special treatment, very special treatment. Mama gave birth to a stranger's child, a child she called her own. Strangers came and took away that child to a stranger's home. But she got special treatment, very special treatment. I never spoke my mother's tongue, I never knew my name, I never learned the song she sung, I was raised in shame. I got special treatment, very special treatment. Yeah, we got special treatment, very special treatment.
Stand in solidarity with Palestine this Sunday.
With the most devastating attack ever launched on the people of Gaza, it's time for all of us to stand in solidarity with the Palestinian people.
Israel has waged war on the Palestinians for the last 75 years. The Nakba, ethnic cleansing, occupation of the West Bank, East Jerusalem and Gaza. Israel has now imposed a total blockade on Gaza and declared war, stopping food, electricity and fuel and launching an all-out attack.
We have to mobilise to show our support for Palestine. 12 p.m, State Library, this Sunday.
Rally to demand freedom and justice for Palestine. No war on Gaza.
Free Palestine Melbourne is a 3CR supporter.
And in case people have just tuned in, this is the Doin Time show, 3CR Community Radio, 855 AM on the dial, streaming live on www.3cr.org.au. It's approximately 4:25, and you just heard a song by Paul Kelly, and it's called Special Treatment. Before we go on with speaking with Meena Singh, I wanted to actually read out a media release, and I hope to be interviewing on this particular topic in the next couple of weeks. And this media release was put out by the Human Rights Law Centre. There are times on the Doin Time show that we read out media releases and articles for information. Media release, Human Rights Law Centre for immediate release, Monday the 15th of April 2024. Senate Committee to hear evidence calling for the Deportation and Travel Ban Bill to be scrapped. Refugee Women Action for Visa Equality, WAVE, and the Human Rights Law Centre will give evidence to a parliamentary inquiry today calling for the Albanese government's dangerous and draconian proposed deportation laws to be rejected. Under the proposed new laws, people could be jailed for 5 years for not assisting with their own deportation, no matter how long they have been in Australia or whether they have family here. People could be stripped of their refugee status and returned to harm. The laws would also allow the Minister for Immigration extraordinary powers to impose a Trump-style travel ban by preventing visa applications from entire countries of people. The Senate Legal and Constitutional Affairs Committee is conducting an inquiry into the bill. In public hearings today, the committee will hear from legal experts, community groups, and people who could be criminalised by the new laws. Refugee Wave, a coalition of 22 staunch Iranian and Sri Lankan women who fled war and oppression and have lived in Australia for the past decade, will call for the Australian government to provide safe and permanent futures, not prison cells. Quote from Pure Dinka Kanishan, student and member of Refugee Wave. I am a 19-year-old student at the University of Canberra, studying a Bachelor of Nursing. I have dreams of being a registered nurse so that I can make sure that people like me receive proper care and do not die before their time, like my father did in Sri Lanka. I am also one of the people who might be jailed if this bill is passed into law. I am one of hundreds of people who have been failed by the fast-track asylum process, but have been in Australia for over a decade. I should not be put in jail just for refusing to leave a country that has become my home. Quote from Sanmati Verma, Acting Legal Director at the Human Rights Law Centre. The Albanese government is seeking to criminalise and punish people based on their visa status. These laws would see people thrown into prison and failing to complete a form, and families torn apart by discriminatory travel bans. The sweeping impacts of the bill would be felt by tens of thousands of people across the Australian community. This deplorable attack on people's lives for the sake of political capital must be firmly rejected. Instead of using harsh criminal sanctions to coerce people into leaving a country that has become their home, the Albanese government should be working on humane alternatives to detention and allowing people to resume their lives in the community in freedom and with dignity. And there's also a link here for Refugee Wave submission to the inquiry. Go onto the Human Rights Law Centre website, Google it, and you will see this link. There's also a Human Rights Law Centre's submission to the inquiry as well, and you can easily download those links. Watch Refugee Wave and the Human Rights Law Centre appear before the Senate inquiry from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m, which was today, Monday the 15th of April 2024. And there's also a link for that. And I wanted to actually give listeners some preliminary material to look at before I actually make some times to interview people about this despicable, yes, Trump draconian law proposal.
Mayday 2024. No more imperialist wars. Workers' solidarity against colonialism. Australian imperialism is a cornerstone to the exploitation and oppression of the global south. From First Nations lands here to the Congo, from Mapuche lands to Palestine. Join the Black People's Union, Latin American Solidarity Network, Renegade Activists, Australian Asia Worker Links, and others in the struggle against Western imperialism. Wednesday, 1st of May, 5 p.m. at the State Library of Victoria. Supported by Community Radio 3CR.
.3CR is radical radio.
Through our on-air content and community structure, we promote real change for workers' rights, gender equality, environmental action, disability justice, and on racism and First Nations sovereignty.
Do you want to be part of real radical change?
We need you to subscribe. It's just $40 concession, $80 waged, $150 for a band or organisation, and $300 solidarity.
Call 03 9419 8377, that's 9419 8377, or subscribe online at 3cr.org.au/subscribe.
And this is the Doin Time show 3CR, and it's approximately 4:32. We're running about 2 minutes late, but we're going to be speaking now, and I've been looking forward to this all week. We're going to be speaking with Meena Singh, who is the Commissioner for Aboriginal children and youth too. And Meena Singh is a Yorta Yorta, an Indian woman born and living on the land of the Kulin Nations. And she's got a Bachelor of Arts from the University of Melbourne, a Bachelor of Law, and a graduate certificate in business from Monash University. She has 20 years' experience in legal practice and policy consulting and training, design and delivery, and she combines her lived experience with professional expertise and is passionate about understanding individual and community identity and experiences to promote inclusion, connection, and ultimately achieve social justice. And that's really important. Lived experience is one of the things that I always talk about on this show. And I have had the pleasure of interviewing Meena. I believe it may have been with another law, may have been with Monique Hurley from the Human Rights Law Centre. I'll check with her quite some time ago now about young people as well. And Meena and I want to speak today not only about her role as Commissioner, but also about lots of other things. I want to talk to her about stolen generation, how that impacts on young people. I want to talk about her lived experience and also look at the connections between the child protection system and the criminal justice system. I heard her, she was actually on a panel at the recent webinar organised by Victorian Aboriginal Legal Service, and we just interviewed Negar as well from Balit. I would like to welcome Meena. Hello, Meena. Welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me, Marisa.
Lovely to have you. So can you just tell us what land you're on? I mean, what land you're from, I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, I was born on Wurundjeri country, and that's the country I'm on now, and I live on Bunurong country.
Beautiful. Now, let me just check something with you. I am positive that I did an interview with you.
Yes.
And no, I don't think it was Monique, was it?
No, I think it was just you and I when I was the Human Rights Law Centre, so it would have been 2022.
Right, because maybe I'm wrong. Yeah, I think it might have been just you and I. Anyway, there have been so many interviews there. Some wonderful lawyers there.
They are. Excellent.
Lovely to have you. So, Meena, can you tell us a little bit about your role as Commissioner and what's done there?
Yeah, so I work with the Commission for Children and Young People. I work alongside a Principal Commissioner, Leanna Buchanan, and whilst Leanna's role is in legislation, there's a Commission for Children and Young People Act. My role isn't in legislation. It's just what they call an other commissioner that can be appointed under the legislation. So we've had a commissioner for Aboriginal children and young people for, this is the 11th year of having a commissioner. I'm nearly 2 years into my role. And what I see the main role of my work, or the point of my work, is to raise the voices and experiences of Aboriginal children and young people, particularly in spaces of youth justice and child protection, but also wherever they are, basically. The experiences they're having in education, in sport, a whole range of places, and to advocate for their rights and advocate for their safety. And so using the Commission's powers and tools, so we can do things like systemic inquiries or individual inquiries into children and what's happening to them. We monitor where children are in youth justice and in out-of-home care. And we also are a regulator, so we regulate child safe standards, which is, organisations need to make sure where children are safe and they're free from harm and abuse, and also the reportable conduct scheme, which is the scheme that comes in if there's been abuse or mistreatment against the child.
And how does being First Nations, how do I say this? Does the Victorian government obviously acknowledge stolen generation and colonisation when these inquiries are happening?
I think they do, but I don't think enough is understood about the ongoing impact and how we see past injustices entrench certain conditions that lead to disadvantage and current negative perceptions and for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. I think often we talk about things like stolen generations as being in the past, or we talk about colonisation as being in the past, without thinking about, no, it's actually an ongoing legacy. It's something that is still continuing, that we're still feeling the effects of. We live in a colonised society. The systems that Aboriginal people live under are colonised systems. And what I'm very much interested in is how do we decolonise these systems? How do we use Aboriginal knowledge, which ways of doing that have kept us strong for over 60,000 years? How do we use that to decolonise the system that we're subject to?
What would be an example of decolonisation?
Something as simple as the way that we think about who family is. For Aboriginal community and for a lot of non-white Western communities, other Indigenous communities of colour around the world, our concepts and ideas of family are much larger than Western nuclear two parents and a kid type families. We consider family not just our parents, but we consider our aunts and uncles, our grandparents, a whole network of adults who are involved in raising children. That's a very Indigenous way of working and being. But what we have are systems that very much focus on having only a mum and only a dad. And we know that doesn't cover what a lot of families experience and what a lot of families go to. In Aboriginal community, it's a strength of our community and our culture that everyone, all the adults, have a part to play in raising children. And again, that's also a feature of lots of other non-white communities. Yet when we see that, we often see that as a deficit in that, oh, well, why isn't a parent, the direct biological parent, providing all the care for a family? Why isn't it just that person playing a role? And I think if we rethink how we think about family, how we think about the structures, and think about things like multi-generational families and houses, who lives in a house, we start to unpack what realities are for a lot of families that don't fit into that neat nuclear family type.
It's so true, isn't it? And it happens a lot with Aboriginal people, but also other cultures too, doesn't it? Yeah, absolutely. And as you said in your intro, my mother's Yorta Yorta, my dad's Indian. So I'm blessed with two backgrounds that, big families that support one another, with aunts and uncles and everyone living in close proximity to one another and providing that support to each other. Yet, sometimes that's frowned upon by Western societies that, something must be wrong if they have to rely on all these other people. And what it means is that there's a strong network of people around a particular child that child can draw upon. And, there's a lot of history around sort of, attachment theories that children attach to one person, but children can actually attach to many people and see many people that they trust in their lives and connect with. And that's exactly what we see in Aboriginal community and culture. Indeed. And there's a lot of kinship, isn't there? There are a lot of kinship groups in Aboriginal culture. Absolutely. And, I just think about my own experiences, and, I'm the youngest of three girls, and I've been lucky enough to have a hand in raising my sister's kids, and, my parents are involved in raising my sister's kids. The role of aunties and uncles and grandparents is so important and so valued, and it's something that isn't, I think is only now being truly valued, those extra relationships for a child, but they've always been a value for Aboriginal community. So what do you think are the things that are important when an inquiry is happening in the child protection system, and is the Bringing Them Home report relevant to that? Oh, absolutely. Bringing Them Home report basically putting into writing what experiences Aboriginal people had, removal policies that, saw, removing of Aboriginal bubs from their mums, from families, being placed, in care homes, to use that term loosely, in homes that where they experienced significant amounts of trauma and harm. We saw that from the Royal Commission into institutional responses to child sexual abuse, what happened to Aboriginal children, that cut off from culture, from family, exposure to abuse. All of these things are what, the Bringing Them Home report brought through. But also, the Royal Commission into Aboriginal deaths in custody also talked about removal of children and the impact of that, and that's 33 years ago today, if I've got my maths right. It's so important that these inquiries have the voices of the people who are directly impacted first, not only in telling their stories, and not just to say, oh, great, we've heard your story, that's lovely, now we'll make the decisions. People's experiences need to be front and centre of how decisions are made, of how policy is made. And there's a chasm, I think, between what people experience of these systems. And we see it today in child removal, in child protection systems. Victoria has the highest rate of removal of Aboriginal children from their families in the country. We need their stories and their experiences to be front and centre when it comes to designing these systems that will actually look after them. Absolutely, and Uncle Jack is a prime example. He's passed away now, but Uncle Jack Charles, look what happened to him. Yeah, and, it's such an absolute treasure, and such a joy for so many of us to have been alive when he was alive, and, to see his talent. But,
the same time, so much of this story is so much the same as for so many other Aboriginal children and young people. In the work that I do, there are so many children who I read about, who are brought to my attention, who I try and advocate for, and their stories are so much the same, and it's almost like you can plot exactly what's going to happen next. And it just screams that these systems are failing our children.
They are indeed, and I'm just really happy that you're commissioner. I think that there's a lot of there's been some great commissioners before you as well. It's been and I think that with the Doin Time show, I always like to connect the present with history. There's been a dreadful history, hasn't there? I recently did an interview about the massacres around Australia, for instance.
Yeah.
And as I was saying to Negar from Ballit, that it's all connected. The criminal justice system, the child protection system, it's all connected with past history.
Yeah. It's, when I started being, when I first started working with Val, 10 or so years ago, and I started being asked to speak about these issues, and a question I would always get is, why are Aboriginal people so overrepresented in criminal legal systems or in youth justice systems? And I'd always kind of flip it around and say to the person asking the question, well, how is it that you and I aren't involved in the criminal legal system? And look at the protective factors that we've had that have kept us out. And for me, that's, having, two parents that were always in full-time work, always had a roof over my head, two big sisters who modelled behaviours for me. I was good at school. I could participate in sport. I, didn't have any sort of disabilities that impacted on me in any way. I had everything going for me that was right. But there's so many kids that we see who get entangled with the legal system, the criminal legal system. We see those things get pulled away. We might see the death or illness of a parent that impacts on the family's stability. We might see lots of moving around. We might see experiences of family violence. All of these things impact. When you look at Aboriginal community and all the things that kept us strong for all those tens of thousands of years, when colonisation happened, when we were disconnected from our land, from our cultures, when our children weren't allowed to connect with their families, when we weren't allowed to speak in language, when we were actively denied the same rights as the rest of the other people in the country, white Australians in the country, it created a disadvantage, and it took away that basis of what keeps us safe and what keeps us strong. And just changing laws and saying, well, suddenly we're all equal, so everything's hunky-dory, doesn't work like that. These practices have legacies that entrench disadvantage. And unless you create systems that recognise the disadvantage, recognise that we have whole communities of people or whole groups of people that are dealing with certain things that puts them behind the eight ball, behind everyone else who doesn't have to deal with those things. Until we recognise our systems need to address those gaps, we just keep expanding, I think, the gap between who gets to get through life and achieve what they want and who doesn't.
Indeed, and this has just been in closing the gap. It hasn't happened yet. What's this closing the gap?
Exactly. Yeah. It's I always find it kind of, and I think COVID really showed a lot in terms of the haves and the have-nots in society. And, we kind of, something like a pandemic happens and it lays bare the inequity across society, and you see exactly who is doing it tough and who is going to be worse off under certain circumstances. And, there's so much that we could have learnt from how we responded to COVID in lots of ways. One thing I always think about was that housing or accommodation was able to be found for homeless people, people living rough, people living in the streets in Victoria, and that's all ended. And, there's just so many different ways that we could be thinking about how do we include everybody and how do we get everybody getting the same opportunities that they need.
I'm going to be honest with you. Look, I think the lockdowns in many ways encouraged community. And it's all gone now again. People were banding together.
Interesting you say that. Yeah. There was a real... I agree. There was a real sense of community, and we're all in this. We all should be looking out for one another and taking care of each other. And if we're all doing what we need to do, we'll all get through. And I think you're right. I think that sense of individualism has come back about how we conduct our lives.
Worse than ever, actually. Although there was the Deaths in Custody rally where the media was demonising, Aboriginal people for having that rally during COVID and spreading the virus, which was absolutely dreadful. No. Meena, can you comment on lived experience? How do you think lived experience plays a role here? Because it's really important, isn't it?
Yeah, I think we have so many people who are in decision-making roles, positions of power, people who are making decisions about other people who have no idea what it is to walk in their shoes. We have people who have lived experience of the system. When we talk about systems, I talk about child protection systems, criminal legal systems, or it's amazing how people can become an expert of the system that they're at the mercy of, and they don't get to exercise their own agency in these systems. And then we have other groups of people who have power and authority, and they make decisions without thinking really about how this impacts. I think we need to get a lot better at hearing the anger that often comes with someone having had to go through the child protection system. We need to be able to sit with the trauma and hear it. And I think often people don't want to. People don't want to deal with the tears or deal with the frustration and the anger of hearing about, what's happened to them. But I think we, as a society, need to get better at that and need to hear how these systems actually work. And if we continue to not listen to the voices of people who've been through these systems, not only do we deny them a voice, but we're also not getting the proper picture of what is actually happening.
Look, we could go on all night, really. I mean, there's just so much.
I love that, Marisa.
Absolutely. Meena, the reason why I invited you onto the show was not just to talk about your commissioner role, but also just to talk to you about not just the lived experience, but other issues pertaining to colonisation and genocide, because we can't just talk about things in a vacuum and say that, young people need to have lawyers. It's a lot more holistic than that.
Oh, absolutely. I always say, whether it comes to child protection or responses to family violence or children becoming, not feeling safe at school and at risk of becoming disengaged, or children at risk of engaging in criminal activity, I always think we have to build the relationships for children before the need arises. And we need to show children and young people that there are people that they can trust and that there are people that they can go to and raise their problems and have those relationships first before the problem arises. And it requires such a holistic approach. If we're going to stop kids from getting engaged in criminal legal systems, we have to think about are they getting the appropriate responses to mental health concerns? Are they getting appropriate physical health concerns addressed? Are they how are they going in school? Are they even, what's their connection with it? Are they, connected with friends or other spaces? We have, this is all in the context of an economy that we're seeing more and more people struggle to, find rental accommodation or to stay in their houses and pay their mortgages, and, finding it harder and harder to put groceries and a dinner on the table, and all these other things that impact on how children and young people experience their lives. So unless we address these bigger issues about how people are simply living and going along in society, we're always going to see children and young people who become disengaged. And it's scary because sometimes we think about the criminal legal system as the worst kind of outcome for a child who becomes disengaged. But there's a whole range of other not great outcomes for children and young people. They deal with poor mental health, which doesn't get addressed. They become isolated from their friends and their families.
Absolutely.
We have to think about what is the quality of life that we want for children and young people.
I'd love to speak to you a lot more, but it's going to finish soon. But I'm wondering if I could have you back in perhaps in a month's time, a couple of weeks or something, just to discuss the bail laws and how that actually impacts Aboriginal children as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We'd be happy to.
Meena, thanks a lot. Any final comments?
No, just thank you for having me. And I think, I'm giving a keynote address at the Australasian Youth Justice Conference tomorrow, and I'm basically talking about how we need to rehumanise the narratives around children and young people who offend, and that we need to remember that it's not always a simple story that's one-sided, that for children and young people, there's many multiple facets of their lives that are complex and need responding to, and that, we just have to remember that behind all these headlines and all these narratives, there are children and young people who really, really need support and need assistance.
Thank you so much. We'll have to talk to you about that conference. Lovely to have you, Meena.
Thank you so much, Marisa.
Thanks a lot. Take care. And that was Meena Singh, and she is the commissioner for Aboriginal people, and Aboriginal children. And we're going to be going out now with our theme song, Black Fella, White Fella by the Rumpy Band. Stay tuned every Monday, 4 to 5 for the Doin Time show. And it's goodbye from Marisa. Stay safe, everybody.
As long as you a true fella, as long as you a real fella. All the people of different races with different lives in different places, it doesn't matter what your name is, we got to have lots of changes. We need more brothers if we're to make it, we need more sisters if we're to save it. Are you the one who's got